I'm Miles, 36 years old, single dad, and the proud father of a 12-year-old named Owen. My entire world wrapped up in a lanky frame, a mop of wild hair, and a laugh that could brighten the darkest day. I used to think family was everything. I grew up believing that. I carried it with me like a badge of honor through every storm life threw my way. But it took a busted skateboard and a hospital waiting room to finally open my eyes to something I had spent way too long denying. My relationship with my parents had always been complicated. Not explosive, not dramatic, just quietly lopsided. I was the independent one, the strong one, the you'll figure it out child. Which sounds like a compliment until you realize it means we're not going to help you. My younger brother, Zach, 2 years my junior, was the golden boy. Charming, outgoing, always the center of attention at every family gathering. He had this uncanny ability to fail upward, and no matter what mess he got himself into, my parents always showed up with a mop and a smile. Meanwhile, I was expected to bring my own towel, clean up my own disaster, and make sure I didn't inconvenience anyone while I was at it. It wasn't always terrible. I don't want to paint a false picture. There were birthdays, holidays, laughs around the dinner table. But if you looked closely, if you really paid attention, you could see the cracks. Like how Mom always remembered Zach's favorite dessert and forgot I was allergic to almonds. Or how Dad would drone on about Zach's latest business idea, none of which ever made $1, but would change the subject when I tried to talk about my graphic design business, the one that's actually paid my bills for the last 6 years. When Owen came along, things shifted even more. I was 24, fresh out of a messy breakup with his mom, and suddenly a full-time parent. I thought that might be the thing to bring the family closer. I thought becoming a dad would earn me some points, some recognition, maybe even a little support. But aside from the occasional birthday card or generic toy at Christmas, Owen was mostly an afterthought to them. They said all the right things. You're doing such a good job. Owen's lucky to have you. But when I needed babysitting or help during a busy work week, there was always a reason they couldn't. Too tired. Too busy. Doctor's appointments. Zach needed help moving again. There was always something. Still, I didn't complain. I couldn't afford to. Emotionally or practically. I kept my head down, worked hard, and raised my boy. We weren't rolling in money, but I built a good life. Simple. Stable. Just us two against the world. And then 3 weeks ago, everything tilted. It was a Saturday afternoon, warm and bright, the kind of day that begs for parks and popsicles. Owen was out with some neighborhood kids, practicing tricks on his new skateboard. He'd just learned how to ollie and had been obsessed with nailing it off the curb. I was inside, cleaning up after lunch, when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, and I almost let it go to voicemail. But something told me to answer. "Mr. Dawson?" the voice asked. "This is Dr. Stevens at St. Joseph's ER. Your son Owen was in an accident at the skate park. He's conscious, but has a broken arm and possibly a concussion. We need you to come down right away." I don't even remember driving there. Just the feeling of my chest tightening and my hands shaking as I grabbed my keys and sprinted to the car. When I got to the ER, Owen was awake but pale, hooked up to monitors, arm bent in a way that made my stomach turn. He smiled when he saw me. "Hey, Dad, I messed up. The doctor said he'd tried to jump the stairs, hit the edge wrong, and fell backward hard. He was lucky he hadn't hit his spine. The concussion wasn't severe, but they wanted to keep him for observation." I stayed by his side the entire time, held his good hand while he slept, read to him from his favorite comic book when he woke up, talked to the nurses, asked questions I barely understood the answers to. I canceled work, rescheduled clients, lived on hospital coffee and vending machine granola bars. For 3 days, it was just me and him. No one came. Not once. No call from Mom. No text from Dad. No drop-in from Zach. I get that people are busy, but this wasn't a stubbed toe or a stomach bug. This was the ER. This was their grandson, their nephew, their family. And they didn't show up. On the second night, when Owen finally dozed off after throwing up from the meds, I sat in the dark, just staring at the ceiling. Part of me wanted to cry, but I didn't even have the energy. I kept thinking, maybe they didn't know how bad it was. Maybe they thought I had it under control. Maybe they didn't want to crowd us. Excuses. I kept making excuses for them, like I always had. By the time we were discharged on the 3rd day, I was emotionally drained. Owen had a cast and a follow-up scheduled. I carried his backpack, held his hand while he limped to the car, and drove him home like I was carrying glass. The next morning, I got a text from Dad. "Morning, Miles. Hope everything's okay. Listen, your brother needs help covering some wedding costs. He's a little short this month. We were thinking you could pitch in, maybe $5,000? You're always so responsible with money. Let us know." I stared at the message for a full minute, rereading it just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. "No, how's Owen?" "No, sorry we couldn't make it." "No, do you need anything?" "Just, Zach needs money." It wasn't even surprising anymore. That was the worst part. The betrayal didn't feel like a knife. It felt like gravity. Heavy, unavoidable, always pulling the same direction. I didn't respond right away. I needed a night to sleep on it. Or stew in it, really. I sat on the edge of Owen's bed that evening, watching him sleep, tracing the bandage across his forehead with my eyes. And I thought about every time I'd held my tongue. Every time I said, "It's fine." Every time I swallowed the bitterness and told myself to be the bigger person. The next morning, I logged into my bank account, sent $1 to Dad, and added a note. "For Zach's wedding. Get him socks." Then I put my phone on silent, made Owen breakfast, and took the day off work to stay home with him. We watched movies, built Lego sets, and ordered greasy takeout. It was the best day I'd had in months. Until the phone rang. It was Mom, and she was furious. Her voice hit me like a slap before I even said hello. "Miles, what on earth is wrong with you?" I paused, staring at the caller ID like it had betrayed me. I hadn't spoken to Mom in almost 2 weeks, not since Owen's accident. Not a word, not a "how's he doing," not even a thumbs up emoji. But now, suddenly, here she was, calling with the urgency of a house on fire. And judging by her tone, I was the arsonist. "Hi, Mom," I said flatly. "Nice to hear from you." "Don't get smart with me," she snapped. "What is this little stunt with the dollar? A joke? Are you trying to humiliate your brother before his wedding?" I leaned back in my chair, phone pressed loosely to my ear. Owen was on the couch, giggling at some goofy cartoon. His laugh gave me just enough patience to keep my own voice even. I sent exactly what I thought he deserved. I said, "You guys didn't show up at the hospital. You didn't even call. But the first text I get is asking for money for Zach's wedding. Not Owen. Not me. Zach." There was a sharp exhale on the other end. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Miles. We didn't know how serious it was. Your father told me Owen had a fall, but you said he was fine. You didn't ask for help. I didn't know I had to ask for family to care when my son is in the ER." Silence. A heavy, uncomfortable silence, like a stone dropping into a still lake. Then came the deflection. "Well, that's not the point. The point is, your brother is getting married, and we're all pulling together to make it special. Zach's under a lot of stress, and this was your chance to step up for once and show some support." "Step up? For once?" I laughed, just one dry, bitter chuckle. "You mean like all those times I stepped up for Owen? Alone? While you guys were too busy helping Zach move for the 4th time this year?" "You're being dramatic." There it was. My mother's go-to shutdown whenever I dared to show emotion. I was dramatic. As a kid, it meant I was being sensitive. As an adult, it meant I was inconvenient. "You know what, Mom? I gotta go. Owen's awake. You remember Owen, right? Your grandson." I hung up without waiting for a reply. That should have been the end of it. But of course, it wasn't. 2 days later, I got a group text. Family group. MOM. Just a reminder that Zach and Emily's wedding is in 6 weeks. We're doing a potluck-style rehearsal dinner on Friday night before the big day. Miles, can you bring your lasagna? Zach loves it. Also, we'll need you to help with parking on the day. Thanks in advance. My eyes scanned the message again and again, looking for something, anything, that resembled acknowledgement. A nod to Owen. A footnote of concern. Nothing. I didn't respond. I just deleted the thread. But the hits kept coming. Later that week, Dad called. Calm voice. Reasonable tone. Playing the diplomat, as always. "Hey bud," he said. "Wanted to talk man-to-man. I know there's been some tension lately." I said nothing. "I get it. You're juggling a lot. Owen's accident scared us too, even if we didn't say much. Your mom, well, you know how she is. And your brother, he's not always great at showing appreciation, but this wedding is a huge deal for him. Emily's family is helping out a lot, and it'd mean the world if we all pitched in." There was a long pause on my end. Then, "Why do you only call me when you want something?" "That's not fair," he said quickly. "We care about you and Owen." "No, you care about Zach. You tolerate me, and you ignore my kid." His voice tightened. Now hold on. No, you hold on. He was in the hospital, Dad. 3 days. Not a call, not a visit, not even a get-well card. And now you want me to play chauffeur and cater for Zach's big day? The same Zach who called Owen a brat at Thanksgiving when he spilled soda on his sneakers. That was an accident. It was Thanksgiving dinner. And Zach made him cry. You told me to stop making a scene. Dad didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he sighed. Look, I'm not saying everything's perfect. But family sticks together, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Then maybe it's time you started acting like I'm part of this family. I hung up again. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd take the hint. But instead, they did what they always did, pretended everything was fine, and steamrolled ahead. Mom began texting me links to tux rental shops. Zach wants navy blue for the groomsmen, she chirped in one message. You'll look so handsome. Then came the wedding registry. Expensive items, dozens of them. Fancy appliances, custom dishware, a $600 vacuum cleaner. I stared at the list like it was written in another language. I was still paying off Owen's ER bill. And now I was expected to buy Zach a state-of-the-art espresso machine? Owen, bless his heart, was too young to fully understand the emotional tug-of-war I was stuck in. But even he noticed. Dad, he asked one night while I was helping him brush his teeth, how come Grandma didn't visit me? I froze, toothbrush in hand. That question hit harder than any of Mom's guilt trips or Dad's lectures. I don't know, buddy, I said softly. Maybe they were busy. He looked up at me, wide-eyed, vulnerable in a way that cracked me open. But I was really hurt. I know, I whispered. I know you were. I went to bed that night, filled with a kind of cold resolve I hadn't felt in years. Over the next couple weeks, Mom doubled down. She sent out a formal invite to a small family brunch 2 weeks before the wedding. Just 6 of us. Me, Mom, Dad, Zach, Emily, and Emily's mom. I wasn't asked. I was assigned to bring drinks and pastries. Owen wasn't invited at all. That's when it started to feel personal. Deliberate. I'd always been on the sidelines of my own family, but now they were drawing a line in the sand. And they were putting my kid on the wrong side of it. I debated confronting them again, but what was the point? They didn't listen. They never had. Every conversation ended with them either gaslighting me or brushing it off with that infuriating phrase. It's not that deep. But it was that deep. It had always been. The worst came the following Saturday. Owen and I were at the grocery store, picking out cereal and snacks. He still had a bit of a limp from the fall, and people occasionally gave us sympathetic looks. I didn't mind. Let them assume what they wanted. As we rounded the corner into the frozen foods aisle, we ran into Zach. Of course. He looked surprised to see me. Then his eyes flicked to Owen. Yo, he said. Little man still limping? I stared at him. No greeting. No warmth. Just that smug smirk he always wore when he thought he was being funny. Yeah, I said. You'd know more if you'd bothered to show up at the hospital. Zach rolled his eyes. Dude, I was in the middle of planning a wedding. You think I've got time to babysit every time someone takes a spill? Owen flinched. I felt my hands clench into fists. It wasn't a spill, I said quietly. It was a concussion, and a broken arm, and 3 days in a hospital bed. Relax, man, Zach said, laughing like I was being ridiculous. He's fine now, right? Kids bounce back. I stepped closer, voice low. You don't get to dismiss what he went through. Or what I went through. You weren't there. You never are. Zach just shrugged. Well, maybe if you weren't so high-strung all the time, people would want to be around you. I didn't say another word. I just took Owen's hand and walked away. But in my chest, something shifted. A fuse, maybe. Something small and old and long forgotten finally snapped. And I started to plan. Not just a petty comeback. Not just skipping the wedding or cutting off contact. No, this needed to be bigger. This needed to be the moment they realized what they'd lost. That family isn't a one-way street. That even the responsible one has a limit. I went home, tucked Owen into bed, and opened my laptop. And then I started writing the first part of my plan. Because if they wanted a show for Zach's big day, they were about to get one. But not the kind they expected. Not even close. I didn't hear from them for a while after the grocery store encounter. Not Mom, not Dad, not even Zach. It was like I'd suddenly become radioactive, too much trouble to deal with. And honestly, I welcomed the silence. But then, 2 weeks before the wedding, I got an envelope in the mail. Not a text, not an email, an actual envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, embossed with a gold crest I didn't recognize. Probably something Emily's family paid extra for. Inside was an invitation, formal script, flourishes, the whole 9 yards. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Zachary Dawson and Emily Carroll, to be held at the Willowdale Country Estate. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was surreal. The invite looked like something pulled from a royal event, not the wedding of a guy who still owed me $300 from a car repair 3 years ago. Then I saw the RSVP card, and the line at the bottom. Regretfully, due to venue capacity limitations, children are not permitted at the ceremony or reception. I stared at it, blinking. No kids. No Owen. Not even allowed to come. There it was. The betrayal. The line. I wasn't just being sidelined anymore. My son, my kid, who was still healing from a fractured arm and barely a few weeks out of the ER, was being officially excluded from the biggest family event of the year. I felt cold. Numb. Not angry at first. Just shocked. Then that shock slowly curdled into something else. This wasn't about capacity. I knew the venue. Willowdale was enormous. My cousin had her wedding there 2 years ago, and there were plenty of kids running around then, including Zach's best friend's 3 toddlers. It was a complete lie. A dressed-up, gold-embossed lie. They didn't want Owen there. Not because of space. Not because of noise. But because he was my son. And I wasn't part of the image they wanted to present to Emily's family. This wasn't a wedding invite. It was a declaration. We don't want your life around ours. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept pacing, back and forth across my apartment, the words on the card echoing like a bad chorus in my head. No children permitted. No Owen. No Owen. At one point, I found myself in his room, watching him sleep. His cast was still wrapped in the blue cover the nurse gave him, his little hand poking out like a question. He stirred once, muttered something about skating better next time, and settled back into a deeper sleep. And in that moment, something in me hardened. I was done asking for respect, done waiting for it. They'd made it clear where we stood. I wasn't just the black sheep anymore. I was the guy they were embarrassed of. The one who showed up to Thanksgiving in khakis while Zach wore a designer blazer. The one who brought store-bought cookies because I didn't have time to bake, while Emily brought a 3-tiered cake and got applauded like she was on a cooking show. I wasn't welcome. Not really. But they wanted my help. They wanted my lasagna. They wanted me to pitch in and buy gifts and play valet on wedding day. No, not anymore. I needed clarity, though. One last confirmation. Something I couldn't ignore, twist, or rationalize. So the next morning, I called Mom. She answered on the second ring. Hi, sweetie. Everything okay? I forced my voice to stay calm. Got the wedding invite. Thanks. Oh, good. Aren't they beautiful? Emily's mother helped pick the font. So classy. I let the silence stretch until she filled it. She always did. Is there a problem? She asked finally, her voice already sliding toward annoyance. I saw the note, I said. About no kids. A pause. Then, oh yes. We had to make a hard decision. Honey, the venue really is strict about that. Liability, you know? And space. There's plenty of space. Well, technically, yes, but we didn't want too many little ones running around during the reception. It's a black tie event, Miles. Very formal. Emily's family is traditional. I almost laughed again. So Owen's not invited because he might ruin the vibe? She sighed, like I was exhausting her. Please don't take it personally. It's not just Owen. It's all children. But Zach's friend Rob is bringing his kids. A beat of silence. They're in the wedding party. I stared at the floor. What? Flower girl and ring bearer. Rob's little ones. It's just different. No, it's not. I said, voice low. You're just pretending it is. Miles, let me ask you something. Did you ever intend for Owen to be there? She hesitated. Too long. I assumed you wouldn't want him to come, she said finally. After everything with the accident. It's a long event, and he's still healing. He's fine. And even if he wasn't, that should have been my call. Miles, don't make this about you. I'm not, I said sharply. That's the problem. It's never about me. Or Owen. It's always about Zach. His comfort. His preferences. His perfect little wedding. And the rest of us are just props. Her tone turned cold. This is a happy time. Don't ruin it. There it was. The shutdown. The gaslight. I hung up. And this time, I didn't regret it. That week, I started making a list. Not just mentally, I wrote it down. Every favor I'd done. Every time I'd stepped up. Every time Zach bailed on moving day, and I came with the truck. Every time Dad forgot to book a service appointment, and I called in favors with my mechanic. Every time I watched my own parents skip Owen's milestones, his kindergarten graduation, his birthday parties, his school plays, because Zach had something come up. The imbalance wasn't subtle anymore. It was in ink, on paper, measured, and it made something in my chest tighten. One night, I got a call from my aunt, my mom's sister, Aunt Brenda. She'd always been the one sane voice in the family, the one who remembered Owen's birthday, the one who once quietly pulled me aside after a Christmas dinner and whispered, "You're doing great. I see you." She called late. I was surprised. "Hey, Miles," she said, voice low. "Just wanted to check in. I heard about the invite." Of course she had. News traveled fast in this family. "I'm fine," I said. "Owen's fine." There was a pause. "Did you know Zach is using your logo for his wedding website?" My breath caught. "What?" "The one you designed for your old business. The interlocking M and D. It's all over his site. Different color, but same exact shape." I felt sick. I hadn't even realized he knew about that logo. I made it years ago, during my freelance branding days. He told people he designed it, Brenda added. That was it. That was the moment. The final twist of the knife. He stole my work. My design. Something I created. And he didn't even bother to change it beyond a new color palette. He just slapped it on his wedding site and bragged about it like it was his own. And no one called him out. Not even Mom or Dad. Of course not. That night, I stared at that list again. And I started writing a new one. Not of what I'd done, but of what I was about to do. Because this wasn't just about exclusion anymore. This was theft. This was erasure. This was a family that had spent years chiseling away at me until all that remained was someone useful, quiet, invisible. And they were about to learn what happened when the quiet one finally stood up. But first, I needed to be patient. Let them think I was still coming. Let them assign me tasks. Parking duty. Lasagna. Whatever. Let them ignore Owen. Let Zach brag about his logo. Let them get comfortable. Because they'd underestimated me for years. And the show was just getting started. The week leading up to Zach's wedding felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Eerily calm, suffocatingly quiet, but I knew the storm was coming. I could feel it building in my chest, one ignored slight and stifled breath at a time. Owen had started asking more questions. Not in a bitter way. Just curious, trying to make sense of things in his own 12-year-old way. Why doesn't Uncle Zach like me? Why don't we go to Grandma's house anymore? Am I going to the wedding with you? I didn't have good answers for any of them. I tried to keep my voice steady. I told him families are complicated. That some grown-ups forget what matters. That we didn't do anything wrong. But deep down, I was unraveling. Not in some dramatic, throw-the-plates kind of way. It was quieter than that. Like standing in a room and realizing you're the only one who ever shows up. The day of the wedding rehearsal came. I didn't go. I'd gotten 3 reminder texts from Mom that week asking me to please confirm you're bringing 2 trays of lasagna and sparkling cider. No mention of Owen. No. Hey, we're so excited to see you. Just logistics. I didn't reply. I'd stopped replying altogether by then. Let them wonder. Let them plan around a ghost. But I wasn't idle. In fact, behind the silence, I was planning more carefully than I ever had. I started by pulling up the wedding website. The logo Zach stole, the one I had designed for my old branding studio, was front and center. It stung in a way that caught me off guard. Not just the theft, but how lazily he did it. No effort to tweak it. No credit. Just pasted it there like he owned it. He even watermarked it on the RSVP cards. And my parents? Not a word. Not even a nod to where it came from. They stood by and let him take something I created and claim it as his own, as if that were just expected. That was rock bottom. Not the ER. Not the wedding snub. Not the fake, no children policy. This was the moment I realized I could never go back to who I was before. Because for the first time, I stopped caring if they ever approved of me. I stopped caring if they changed. They wouldn't. That was the truth. The kind of truth that takes years to finally sink in. They didn't see me. Not really. I was the guy who filled in the blanks. Who showed up when Zach bailed. Who brought the food. Who took the group photos. Who had it handled. I was never the one they celebrated. I was never the son they bragged about. I was the utility. And I was done. But that didn't mean I was going to disappear quietly. Not anymore. 2 days before the wedding, Dad called again. "Miles," he said, voice lighter than I expected. "We've been trying to finalize seating. Are you coming?" "Why?" I asked. He sounded thrown. "What do you mean, why?" Why do you want me there? Miles. No, really. Be honest. You banned my son. You ignored him when he was in the hospital. You let Zach steal from me. So what's left? You need someone to set up the tables? He sighed. Look, I know there's been tension, but Zach's wedding is not the time for this. It's supposed to be a celebration. That's funny. It sure feels like a funeral. There was a long pause. Then, in a softer tone, he said, Miles, don't make this bigger than it needs to be. But it was big. It had always been big. I just hadn't let myself see it. I ended the call by telling him I'd let them know. What I didn't tell him was that I'd already been working on something for weeks. Something small, subtle, not petty, but precise. Revenge, yes, but not loud, messy revenge. Surgical revenge. It started with a cease and desist. I had proof, timestamps, original files, drafts of that logo dating back 5 years. I still had the invoice from when I registered it with my LLC, back when I thought I was going to launch my own agency. A friend of mine, Danielle, was a freelance intellectual property attorney. We'd worked on a project once where a client tried to stiff us both. She was smart, ruthless in the right way, and owed me a favor. I sent her everything. The files, screenshots, their wedding site URL. Within 2 days, she drafted a formal letter addressed to Zachary Dawson and Emily Carroll, requesting immediate removal of all design elements attributed to me, along with a notice that any use of my registered mark constituted a copyright violation. I didn't send it yet. No, this wasn't the moment. This wasn't the stage. I wanted it to land where it mattered, where it would have an audience, at the wedding. But before that, I needed something else, something quieter, something personal. Closure. I wrote a letter. Not the kind you send. The kind you write just to see your own truth on paper. Dear Mom and Dad, I used to think the problem was me. That maybe I was too sensitive, too distant. That maybe if I was more like Zach, louder, flashier, easier, you'd see me the way you see him. But I realize now, it was never about who I was. It was about who you decided I was. I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your praise. I've raised my son alone for 12 years. I've missed sleep, meals, vacations, and relationships just to keep his world steady. And I've done it without complaint, without expectation. But I'm done asking for space at a table I helped build. You want a show for Zach's wedding? I'll give you one. Sincerely, the son who finally stopped trying. I didn't send that one either. But it sat there on my desk, glaring back at me. A reminder of what I was walking away from, and what I was walking toward. The night before the wedding, Owen and I made pizza together. He wore his favorite hoodie, gray, with a faded cartoon dinosaur, and asked if we were doing something special the next day. I hesitated, then smiled. Yeah, buddy, I think we are. He grinned and kept layering cheese on the pizza like it was his job. I didn't explain the plan. He didn't need to know. Not the details. All he needed to know was that I was choosing him, that I'd always choose him. The next morning, I got dressed in a suit. Not because I was going to the wedding, but because I needed to look sharp for what came next. I packed up a few things, Danielle's cease and desist letter, a USB with the original logo files, a printed list of my invoices, and one more thing. A framed photo of Owen from the hospital. Pale, bruised, but smiling. With my hand on his. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because they needed to see what they'd ignored. What they'd thrown away for the sake of appearances. I slid everything into a leather folio, zipped it up, and checked my watch. The wedding ceremony started in 3 hours, and I was going to be ready. But I wasn't going there as a guest. I was going there as something else entirely. And when the music stopped and the cake was cut, they'd remember me. Not the way they remembered Zach, but in a way they'd never forget. I didn't show up at the country estate in time for the ceremony. I wasn't interested in watching Zach sob through his vows, pretending to be a grown man while wearing a suit his fiancé's family probably paid for. I wasn't there to watch my mom dab her eyes with a monogrammed napkin or hear Dad chuckle loudly at some private joke with the in-laws to show he was cool for his age. I was there for the reception, when all the flash and glitter would be on full display, when cameras would be rolling, glasses would be clinking, and everyone would be at their most smug and self-satisfied. That's when the mask always slips, when people think they've won. The Willowdale Country Estate was a sprawling vineyard/event space about an hour outside the city. Gorgeous in that sterile, curated way, all manicured hedges, cobblestone paths, and faux rustic signs. There was valet parking, a cocktail garden, and at least 4 photo booths, judging by the setup I saw while walking past. I showed up alone. Suit crisp, shoes polished, folio in hand. The second I stepped onto the reception patio, I could feel the tension. Not from strangers, no, from them. Mom spotted me first. Her face twitched as she approached, plastering on a strained smile that looked like it physically hurt her cheeks. "Miles, you made it." Her voice was a mix of surprise and relief, like someone who expected the fire alarm to go off, but was still hoping it wouldn't. "I did," I said, handing her a gift bag with the framed photo of Owen in the hospital. "Thought I'd drop this off." She took it, confused. "What is it?" "Something I thought Zach and Emily should have. Family memento." Her smile faltered. "Is Owen with you?" I looked around, as if checking for him. "No kids allowed, remember?" She flinched. "Just a little." Right. "Well, the venue was." "I know. You said that." She stood there for a moment, clutching the bag, searching for words. Then Zach appeared behind her, drink in hand, bow tie loosened like he was the king of his own after-party. Well, look who showed," he said with a smirk. "Thought you were boycotting the family. Just wanted to make sure you got my gift," I said evenly. He gave me a side eye and laughed. "Don't tell me it's another pair of socks." I smiled. "Something like that." I could tell he wasn't threatened. Not even slightly. Because Zach never believed there were consequences. Not for him. Not for me. I was just the older brother who carried his bags and watched his dog when he went on vacation. He didn't know I wasn't that guy anymore. The reception moved indoors. A ballroom with hanging chandeliers, a string quartet, and long banquet tables lined with glassware and enough floral arrangements to make you sneeze just by looking at them. I didn't sit at the family table. They'd assigned me to one in the back, near the door to the kitchen, next to two cousins I hadn't seen in 10 years and a guy from Emily's side who spent 20 minutes loudly explaining cryptocurrency to his girlfriend. I didn't eat, didn't drink, just sat quietly, watching the room. Then came the speeches. Emily's dad went first. Predictable, loving, saccharine, a touch overlong. Then Mom. She told some story about Zach saving a kitten once. I couldn't tell if it was real or rebranded from a Disney movie. Then Zach took the mic. He started with the usual cliches. "I wouldn't be who I am without my family. Marriage is a journey. Emily makes me a better man." I almost tuned it out, until he got to the logo. "And I want to thank everyone who helped make this day happen," he said, raising his glass. "Especially my buddy Chris, who designed the wedding website and that sick logo we've been using on everything. Man, you nailed it." The crowd clapped. I didn't. Because there it was. My design. My work. Being handed off as a party favor. Like I was nothing. Like I'd never existed. That was my cue. I stood up quietly, walked out of the ballroom, and found the event coordinator near the catering setup. A well-dressed woman with a headset and a clipboard, clearly running on stress and espresso. "Hi," I said, flashing a polite smile. "I need to speak with the DJ before the slideshow starts. I have something the groom forgot to include." She blinked. I think we already have the playlist." I handed her the USB. "It's preloaded. No changes needed. Just cue it after the best man speech. Trust me, it'll mean a lot." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I'll make sure he gets it." I thanked her, walked back into the ballroom, and waited. 10 minutes later, the best man wrapped up his speech with a joke about Zach's party years and how Emily domesticated the beast. Laughter all around. Glasses clinking. Then the lights dimmed slightly, and the projector flickered to life. "Before we bring the couple out for their first dance," the DJ announced, "we've got a special video message from someone who couldn't be here." The screen lit up. First slide. A letter to the groom and bride, from someone who used to be family. The room fell silent. Second slide. A photo of Owen in the hospital bed, smiling with his cast. Gasps. Then came a string of side-by-side comparisons. My original logo sketches. The file date stamps. The logo Zach used. The registration certificate. Then one final message on screen. This design was stolen. No credit was given. No family visited. But some truths demand an audience. Congratulations, Zach. And goodbye. The lights snapped back on. And I was already gone. I didn't wait to see their faces. I didn't need to. I'd said everything I needed to say. I didn't even drive straight home. I stopped at a lookout point outside the city, sat on the hood of my car, and stared out across the hills. The air felt different, like breathing in for the first time after years underwater. My phone buzzed. Voicemail from Mom. Missed call from Dad. 3 texts from Zach. All caps. All rage. I didn't open any of them. Because I was finally done giving people access to me just because we shared DNA. That was the beginning. The real beginning. It's been 4 months since the wedding. And life? It's better than I ever expected. I didn't think cutting off my family would feel freeing. I thought it would feel like amputation. But it didn't. It felt like walking out of a room where someone had been slowly poisoning the air. I started focusing on my design business again. Relaunched my brand. Reclaimed my logo. Built a new site. Told my story. About the theft. About the erasure. About how creatives deserve credit, even from their own family. The post went viral. Clients started flooding in. Not huge corporate gigs, but passionate startups, authors, musicians, people who respected the craft, people who saw me. I made more money in those 3 months than I had in the entire year before. Owen and I moved into a better place. Nothing huge, just a 2-bedroom with a balcony and better lighting. I finally bought him the gaming laptop he'd been saving up for. We spent a weekend building IKEA furniture and eating Chinese food straight from the cartons. He still asks about the family sometimes, but less often now. And when he does, I don't lie. They didn't treat us right, I say. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who don't clap when you win. He nods. Quietly. Thoughtfully. And then he goes back to drawing or gaming or trying to teach me some ridiculous Fortnite dance. We're good. Really good. Better than I thought we'd ever be. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not chasing a seat at anyone's table. I'm building my own. The first few weeks after the wedding felt like emerging from a fog. I'd spent so many years gaslighting myself, trying to believe I was the problem. Too serious, too distant, too unwilling to just let things go. But now, after reclaiming my self-respect and severing ties with people who refused to acknowledge my worth or my son's humanity, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt clean, uncluttered, peaceful. I got a lot of mixed messages in the aftermath. Mom tried calling twice, left a voicemail that was more damage control than apology. We just wanted things to be special for Zach, she said. It wasn't personal. Can we please just move forward as a family? I didn't respond. Dad emailed me a week later with the subject line, "This has gone too far." The body was short. Just a few lines accusing me of embarrassing the family, warning me to stop with the drama, and, my personal favorite, reminding me that Zach has a reputation to protect now that he's married into a respected family. That line got under my skin more than I expected, because it confirmed what I'd always suspected. I was never the son they believed in. I was the wild card, the liability, the one who could be tolerated, so long as I stayed quiet and useful. But I wasn't quiet anymore, and I was done being useful to people who never lifted a finger for me. Still, I didn't lash out. Not right away. Because while the fallout from the wedding made headlines in our little family circle, I had bigger things on my mind. Business was booming. After the slideshow stunt, which, by the way, went mildly viral after someone at the wedding uploaded a video of it to TikTok with the caption, "Groom's brother airs the family's dirty laundry in 4K. I started getting DMs, lots of them. Some were from other designers who had been through similar things, clients ghosting them, relatives stealing their work, corporations refusing to pay. But others were from small business owners who said things like, "I want to work with someone who values their craft like you do," or "Your designs are clean and honest, just like your story." Within a month, I'd picked up 7 new clients. By the 3rd month, I was booked through the end of the year. I wasn't making Zuckerberg money, but I was finally earning enough to breathe, really breathe, for the first time in years. I upgraded some of my equipment. Got Owen a new bike for his birthday. Took 2 full weekends off, no work at all, just him and me in a cabin by the lake. And then something unexpected happened. I got an email from someone named Rachel Liu, head of brand development at a fast-growing indie publishing house in Portland. She'd seen the viral post, clicked through to my portfolio, and liked what she saw. They were launching a new author imprint and needed a creative director to oversee branding, cover design, and digital presence. She asked if I'd be interested in a 6-month contract. It was more money than I'd made in 2 years. I didn't hesitate. The publishing job gave me access to things I hadn't had before, tools, networks, and connections I never knew I'd need. And more importantly, data. That might not sound exciting to most people, but when you've been belittled and ignored your entire life, seeing hard numbers, real analytics, measurable growth, actual metrics, proves what you always suspected but could never say out loud. You were never the problem. I ran a case study on my rebranded design site. Traffic increased by 470% in 8 weeks. Click-through rates on contact forms tripled. My average client spend went up by 200%. I even had a nonprofit reach out and offer me a recurring retainer to redesign all their public campaigns. And all of that came from finally saying, enough. Owen noticed the change, too. Not just in the bigger apartment or the newer car, but in me. You smile more now, he told me one night while we were building Lego towers on the living room rug. Do I? I asked. Yeah, he said. And you don't look tired all the time. I ruffled his hair, fighting the lump in my throat. Because the truth was, I had been tired. Not just from work, but from trying to win a game that was always rigged. From showing up for people who wouldn't cross the street for me. That weight was gone now. And that left me with something I hadn't had in years, clarity. And space to start thinking more strategically. Because there was still one loose thread in the story. Zach. I hadn't spoken to him since the wedding. But I had heard about him, indirectly. One of the cousins I sat next to during the reception messaged me a few weeks later. Dude, that slideshow? Iconic. But guess what? Zach's business pitch to Emily's family flopped. Apparently, he was trying to get her dad to invest in some tech startup idea, but the slideshow made him look shady, and now they're distancing themselves. I didn't respond, but I filed the info away. A month later, a former client of mine, someone I'd done web work for years ago, reached out and asked, "Is your brother's company legit? He's using your logo on a deck he sent me." That got my attention. I asked him to forward the pitch deck. He did, and there it was. A glossier version of the same logo. My logo. Still stolen. Still uncredited. Only now it was being used to push some vague, fintech lifestyle startup Zach had apparently cooked up, complete with AI buzzwords and fake testimonials. I stared at the deck for 20 minutes, stunned. Not just because he was still using my work, but because he was actively monetizing it. Passing it off as a legitimate brand identity. A business. A pitch to real investors. I called Danielle again, the IP lawyer who had helped me draft the original cease and desist. I sent her the updated files, screenshots, timestamps. "This is blatant," she said. "You want to take legal action?" I hesitated. A year ago, I would have said no. I would have felt guilty, afraid, ashamed for even thinking about it. But now, I'd earned my peace. I'd fought my way back from the edge. I had clients, contracts, a future, and I had power. So yeah, I wanted justice. But not just a lawsuit. I wanted to own the space Zach thought he ruled. So I started researching. And I found something interesting. Turns out Zach had filed a business license in our state for his startup, but hadn't trademarked the name. I checked the domain registry. The .com was already taken, but the .org, .app, and .co versions? Available. So I bought them. All of them. Then I trademarked the name. Legally. Fully. Publicly. I updated my business portfolio to include brand rescue services, reclaiming stolen or misused designs. I made a quiet blog post about the Zach situation without naming names, showing how important it is to protect your intellectual property even from unexpected sources. It blew up. Design Twitter had a field day. More clients came in. And best of all, Zach didn't even know yet. I was playing the long game now. Strategically. Carefully. And when the moment came to pull the pin, it would be loud and permanent. But not yet. First, I had to get everything lined up. The domain redirects. The trademark certificate. The client testimonials. And one final thing. Proof that Zach had profited, even a little, off the brand he stole. Because once I had that, it wasn't just a copyright issue. It was fraud. And I was going to make sure he paid for every smug little smirk, every stolen design, every time he called Owen your kid instead of his nephew. This wasn't about rage anymore. It was about balance. The kind you measure in invoices, signatures, and court dates. And when it came due, Zach was going to realize something very important. He didn't just lose a brother. He created an adversary. It took almost 2 months of preparation before I finally decided it was time. Not out of impulse or anger. Those days were behind me, but because everything was now in place. Every receipt, every timestamp, every copy of every file that proved what Zach had done. For once, I wasn't walking into a family fight fueled by emotion. I was walking into a checkmate I'd built, piece by piece, in silence. The best revenge, I'd come to learn, wasn't loud. It was quiet, legal, permanent. And it started with a phone call I didn't expect. "Hey, Miles," came a voice I hadn't heard in almost half a year. It was Aunt Brenda. Calm, level-headed Brenda, the only relative who ever saw through the chaos. "Just thought you should know, your brother's well, he's in trouble." I leaned back in my chair. "What kind of trouble?" "He's been going around trying to get investors for that tech company he keeps talking about, Momentum Innovations or something. But apparently someone reported his website for trademark infringement. His domain's been taken down, and he's freaking out." "Trademark infringement?" I repeated, feigning confusion. "Huh, wonder how that happened." She sighed, long and knowing. "Miles, you didn't." "I did everything legally," I said, my tone calm but firm. "And honestly, Brenda, for once, I'm not sorry." She didn't scold me. She didn't even sound surprised. "Good," she said. "Someone had to teach that boy consequences." Zach's meltdown came fast and loud. He didn't call me directly, of course. He sent an email titled, "You need to fix this." Not "please." Not "can we talk." Just pure entitlement, like I was still his unpaid tech guy. Apparently, after I trademarked the name and secured all domain variations, I'd set up a simple redirect. Anyone who typed in his company's name got sent to my portfolio site, where a banner read, "Protect your work." Because not everyone respects creative ownership. Underneath was a small link. "Learn how to safeguard your intellectual property." I didn't mention Zach. I didn't need to. The implication was enough. His investors had started asking questions. A few of them ran basic background checks, and when they found my trademark registration attached to the company name he was pitching under, the funding dried up instantly. The website went dark. His pitch deck looked fraudulent. And the cherry on top? The platform he used to host his demo app banned his account for potential IP violations. Within a week, his company had imploded. He tried calling Dad next. Then Mom. Both of them called me in a panic. "Miles, can't you just let this go?" Mom pleaded. "He's your brother. Let it go." I asked softly. "He stole from me. He erased me. You all helped him do it." Dad cut in. "It's family business, son. Family handles things privately." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what I tried to do for 12 years. You ignored it. Now it's public, and suddenly it matters." They had no response. And for once, I didn't fill the silence for them. The next phase was unintentional but poetic. One of the contacts from the publishing house, Rachel Liu, called me about a month later. "We're expanding," she said. "And I've been thinking, have you ever considered managing a small creative team?" I froze. "You mean like full-time?" "Not in-house. Contract to hire," she explained. "You'd oversee branding for our new digital imprint, mentor junior designers, build a consistent visual identity across authors. It's a leadership role, and honestly, you've got the temperament for it. You're calm under fire." Calm under fire. If she only knew. I accepted. Within weeks, I had a small team of 4, 2 designers, a photographer, and a social media coordinator. We worked remotely, scheduled creative sessions twice a week, and hit every milestone early. I felt a kind of energy I hadn't known in years. I wasn't chasing approval anymore. I was building something that was mine. And I made sure to bring Owen into the picture, too. He'd come into my office sometimes after school, sit beside me, and watch while I edited mock-ups or fine-tuned cover concepts. He'd started sketching logos himself, doodles of dragons, spaceships, and sometimes a skateboard company he called Solar Decks. When I told him one day, "You know, you could actually learn design for real," his eyes lit up. "You mean like you?" "Better," I said with a grin. "Way better." Then, out of nowhere, Zach showed up at my apartment. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was on the balcony watering the small collection of succulents Owen insisted we adopt. I heard a knock, turned around, and there he was, looking nothing like the confident, smirking brother I remembered. His hair was unkempt, his shirt wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. "Can we talk?" he asked. I didn't answer at first, just stepped aside and gestured him in. He stood awkwardly by the door, glancing around at the new furniture, the framed prints on the wall. His gaze lingered on a photo of me and Owen at the lake. "You're doing good," he said finally. "I am." He swallowed. "I messed up." I didn't respond. He kept going. "After the wedding thing, Emily's family stopped trusting me. Her dad pulled out of the investment. Then I tried to relaunch the brand under a new name, but that got flagged too." He hesitated. I didn't know you'd actually trademarked it. You mean you didn't think I could? I corrected. Because I was the boring brother. The one who handled things quietly. He looked down. I wasn't trying to hurt you, man. I just thought it didn't matter. I almost laughed. Didn't matter? You used my design, my name, my reputation, and when I called you out, you doubled down. He sighed. I know. I was stupid. I lost everything. You didn't lose everything, I said calmly. You lost what wasn't yours. We stood there in silence for a while. Then he said, almost in a whisper, I need help, Miles. I've got debts now. Emily left. I'm trying to get back on my feet. I thought maybe. I waited. Maybe what? Maybe you could put in a word for me at your company. You've got connections, right? Just something small. Freelance. I can do social media or sales or whatever. It was almost funny how quickly the roles had flipped. For years, I'd been the one needing help, asking for support, only to be told everyone was too busy. And now here was Zach, standing in my doorway, shoulders slumped, voice trembling, asking me to throw him a lifeline. For a moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I thought of Owen, lying in that hospital bed, of the $1 I'd sent with the note, get him socks, of the way Mom's voice turned cold when I dared to call out the unfairness, and of how Zach laughed in the grocery store aisle when I mentioned the accident. The pity evaporated. Zach, I said quietly, you taught me a valuable lesson. He frowned. What? That family doesn't mean letting people use you. He didn't say anything. I'm not your enemy, I added, but I'm not your safety net either. His eyes glistened. So that's it. That's it, I said. You wanted to build a business? Build one from scratch. Like I did, without stealing someone else's foundation. He turned to leave, stopped at the door, and said, Mom and Dad won't forgive you for this. I smiled faintly. Then I guess they can add it to the list. He left without another word. A week later, I got a call from Rachel again. We're opening a new design residency, she said. We'd like you to lead it. It was an educational initiative for young artists, free workshops, paid mentorships, and internship opportunities. The kind of program I would have killed for when I was starting out. I said yes without hesitation. Over the next few months, I helped design a full curriculum. I taught branding ethics, design law, and portfolio building. I even created a module called Credit Matters, the cost of creative theft. It became the most popular session in the program. And when we held our first live-streamed event, I ended the talk with one simple line. Sometimes, revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about building yours so high they can't reach it. The chat exploded with applause emojis and heart reactions. Somewhere out there, I knew Zach would probably see that clip. And that was fine, because I wasn't doing it for him anymore. I was doing it for Owen. For every overlooked, underestimated person who kept giving until they had nothing left. For me. And the sweetest part? I didn't even have to raise my voice. Zach didn't implode right away. At first, he did what he always did when life turned against him. He pivoted, claimed the trademark situation was a misunderstanding, told anyone who'd listen that I was bitter and jealous. He even tried to paint me as unstable, spreading whispers through the family grapevine that I'd been weird ever since the hospital thing and never really recovered after the divorce. But the thing about lies? They're slippery, hard to hold on to once people start checking facts. And thanks to the business community I'd built over the past year, those facts weren't buried anymore. They were public, archived, and, most importantly, shared. The domains I purchased redirected to a sleek microsite that told the full story of the stolen design, complete with side-by-side visuals, timelines, and screenshots of Zach's fake investor pitch using my logo. It wasn't mean-spirited. It was just facts. Clean, cold, documented, and extremely hard to argue with. Zach's reputation, already on shaky ground after the wedding stunt, began to unravel. Former partners distanced themselves. A few of his friends stopped responding to his messages. Emily's family, from what I heard, cut him off completely once they realized how badly he had tried to rope their name into his con. But the final blow came when he tried to start a new venture, something unrelated to design or tech. A dropshipping side hustle called Peak Flare Company. He launched an Instagram, registered a Shopify page, even used AI-generated product mock-ups to make it look bigger than it was. And then, out of habit, or maybe desperation, he reused the same branding elements he stole from me a year ago. Same icon, same tagline, just reworded. Same color scheme. He must have figured I wouldn't notice. Or maybe he thought enough time had passed. He was wrong. I filed a takedown request through Shopify, Instagram, and his domain registrar. This time, armed with a legal trademark and a history of documented IP abuse, the takedowns were swift. His entire online presence disappeared in 48 hours. He tried messaging me again after that. Just one line. You've made your point. Now stop. I didn't reply. Not because I hadn't heard him, but because I had. He was done, and I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. Mom called again a few weeks later. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was quieter this time. Not angry. Not frantic. Just tired. I miss you. I miss Owen. I know I've made mistakes. Your father and I, we didn't mean to hurt you. We just didn't know how to handle everything. We thought you were strong. You always were. Maybe we leaned on you too much. She paused. Zach's in a rough place. He's not himself. He's talking about leaving the state. Says there's nothing here for him. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm losing both my sons. Another pause. Please call me. Or at least, let us see Owen. He shouldn't have to be caught in all this. Click. I sat there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because for the first time, she didn't. That voicemail didn't move me. Not the way it might have a year ago. It sounded like someone trying to reopen a door they'd spent decades ignoring until it finally rusted shut. But I did play the message for Owen. He listened quietly, swinging his legs off the edge of the couch. His game paused on the screen. Do you want to see them? I asked gently. He shook his head. Not really. I didn't push. Just ruffled his hair and said, okay. That was the last time I played that voicemail. I didn't delete it, but I never listened to it again. 6 months passed. The new mentorship program I ran had expanded to include 2 satellite cities. My team had grown. I was now managing a dozen creatives, all remote, all thriving. I was invited to speak at a national design conference, my first keynote. Owen came with me. He sat in the front row while I told the story, not just about branding, not just about theft, but about value. The kind people don't always see. The kind that doesn't scream or demand attention. I used to think that if I worked hard enough, I told the crowd, people would notice. That they'd say thank you. That they'd treat me fairly. But the truth is, some people only see you as far as they can use you. A murmur swept through the crowd. Heads nodded. But here's the thing, I continued. You don't need permission to reclaim your story. You don't need an apology to walk away. And you don't need validation from people who only show up when there's something to take. I looked down at Owen. He smiled. And I smiled back. Because this wasn't just my revenge story anymore. It was his origin story. He was growing up in a home that honored boundaries, respected effort, and valued authenticity. He'd seen what entitlement looked like, and what quiet strength could do to it. I'd made sure of that. I did hear from Zach one last time. Almost a year to the day after the wedding. A handwritten letter. No return address. Just a single page, folded neatly. Miles, I don't know if this will even reach you. I've been doing some thinking. A lot of thinking. I was wrong. About everything. About the wedding. The brand. Owen. You. I told myself I was the victim, but I wasn't. I was just a guy who thought he could take, and take without paying the bill. You sent the bill. I got it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve a second chance. But I wanted you to know that you were right. About all of it. Zach. There was no PS. No contact info. Just that. I didn't respond. Not because I hated him, but because my life wasn't about him anymore. He wasn't the center of my story. I was. And I wasn't done writing it. The last scene I'll give you is this. Owen and I were walking through a local art fair. He'd just saved up enough money to buy a digital sketch tablet and was showing me designs he'd been working on, logos for his imaginary skateboard company, his YouTube banner, even a draft of a comic he wanted to write. At one booth, a woman noticed my name on my card and said, "Wait, you're that Miles Dawson?" I nodded a little sheepishly. Depends which story you've heard. She grinned. The one where the quiet brother finally got loud in the best possible way. I laughed. That's me. Owen looked up at me. You were kind of famous, he whispered. Nah, I said. Just loud enough that people finally started listening. And then I put my arm around his shoulder. We kept walking. The sun was high. The path was clear. And for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't chasing anyone. I was already home.